Mam Devam Sarasatim Vyasam Tito Jahodira Nashtapareshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Seva Bhagavati Utamashuki Bhakti Bhavati Nashtiki Nigamaka Paru Garitam Param Shukamakamita Dravishamitam Pibata Bhagavatam Rashamariam Mahora Hora Shiko Vivekaham Krishna Swadam Apagate Dharmagini He Karonashta Dvishamasho Padana Koduno Didam Tamapi Adabhishuddha Vishadam Vibhu Samyapi Viram Viduksaram Prakyahido Marida Samklesha Nirvanam Usani Nanyataham Chakvashadanam Charanam Bhushamhare Bhajana Pakpa Prachapadhed Yatraka Babada Buddhi Mutishim Kovartatam Bhajatam Shadamataham Om Maganati Marandasyang Ganangana Salakya Chaksurin Meditam Yanatashmai Shikadavanamam Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yada Bhutade Swayam Rupakara Mayam Tadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Siyata Parakamaram Shri Gurun Vaishnavamstam Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Sabarutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Larita Shri Vishakan Vitam Stam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishes Sunyori Praskita Desatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Good morning, Anjali. Good morning, John Malik. Comments are, for some reason, they're on the side. Good morning, Brita. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. I have a completely different look in Facebook this morning. The comments are on the side. Under live, there's nothing there. So, yeah, let me know in the comment section that you're getting this, because Facebook has given me an entirely different look this morning. Wonder if any of you caught the Saturday night talk in Salt Lake City given by 15-year-old boy named Ishan Sharma. He talked about time. It was an incredibly well-prepared talk. It was accompanied by a slideshow. He's a debater. He travels all over the country with his high school debate team, and they're quite good. They're nationally ranked. So he has a good mode of delivery, he has excellent projection. He created a rapport with his audience. They laughed at all of his jokes. Incredibly researched, and like I said, supported with graphics, supported with imagery. If you get a chance, go to our Hare Krishna. I'm reading you loud and clear. Thank you, Rita. Natasha, good morning. Hare Krishna. Natasha and Larry came for the Sunday feast last night. Got a huge, heavy case of Srimad Bhagavatams. Beautiful story of the absolute truth. Larry said, a little light reading for the house. Anyway, yeah, I recommend it. This is a great hope for the future coming generation. 15-year-old boys with such poise, such conviction. And it was really an inspiring talk. It really inspired people, I think, to knuckle down on their chanting, their devotional practices. However, lest he become too taken with himself because of all the compliments. So I reminded him that Sankaracharya took sannyas at the age of 12. So there are some above and ahead of him, like Sankaracharya, Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, but that's also an award. That's also an honor, a medal, to be in line, anywhere within 100 down from Sankaracharya, Prahlad, and Dhruva Maharaj. So speaking of Swan-like, young and old representatives, on the other end of the scale, you have Srila Prabhupada, who started his mission at the age of 70, spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, 820 iskcon temples. Whenever we have woofers or volunteers who stay here, they talk about going to India. I say, if you want to get the most out of your India experience, just do one thing. Whenever you arrive at the airport or the bus station or the train station, the rickshaw wallers all want to know where you'd like to go. just say one word, iskcon. iskcon. Everybody in India knows what that means. It means International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So you tell your rickshaw waller, take me to iskcon, the nearest iskcon temple. And they're everywhere. In every major bus station, train station, airport, there's an iskcon temple on the level of the one you see behind me, or even greater. Uh, they'll have a restaurant more often than not with beautiful prasadam. Uh, most of them have guest rooms where you can stay very inexpensively. And the devotees are international. So you get a whole range of people from Europe and Asia and all over the world. English is spoken commonly. Of course, it's spoken generally throughout all of India. But English is spoken. And there's a grasp of the Bhagavad Dharma philosophy there, which is universal amongst all the stewards of the temple. So you can get things explained to you, things which you're puzzled about or confused about. And there's a lot of things to be puzzled and confused about in Indian life and Indian culture and Indian scriptures. Devotees can explain it to you in such a way that it will be crystal clear. And in many cases, they'll even arrange tour adventures to you. When I was staying in Tirupati, they told me very kindly, be at the front gate at 6 a.m. And I said, what's happening? They said, you'll find out. So I presented myself outside the front gate of the temple at 6 a.m. And sure enough, they'd rented a bus and a driver for me and several other visitors and drove us right up to the top of the Tirupati temple. Not only that, but it generally takes 6 hours of waiting in line to get into the temple for darshan of Balaji. But they had paved the way. They had connections, obviously, up there on top of the hill. Within 15 minutes, we were standing before Balaji. And most people, as soon as you get before Balaji, they have pushers. The temple hires pushers because, you can't stand too long in front of Balaji. There are like 5,000 people behind you waiting for their 5 seconds. But I found that when I was standing in front of Balaji, by the kind arrangement of the temple and the connections they had, no one was pushing me. So I started chanting Purusha Shukta. Om Sahasra Sirsa Purusha Sahasraksa Sahasapad Sabamam Vishado Vijata Dishangalam Purusha Vedam Sarvam Yaksputam Yaksabhavyam Tamarita Disheshana Yanantaroti Etavanasya Mahimato Jigamscha Purusha Parusha Vishabhutani Tripadashamidamari Triparad Baridait Purusha Parusha Babatpana Yuto Vishram Vikramate Sasana Sarebi. And I noted when they finally did gently push me off to one side, I noted to what point I had proceeded in terms of chanting the 17 mantras, or however many of the 17 mantras of the Purusha Shukta I chanted. So when I went off to the side, I timed it, and they had allowed me graciously, and the temple had arranged for it. Most people get just a couple of seconds before they're unceremoniously pushed. I had 1 minute and 17 seconds. 1 minute and 17 seconds. And not only that, my guide said, let's go again. So within another 15 minutes, I was standing before Tirupati. By the way, there's only one picture, I believe, of Tirupati, of Balaji. It was taken black and white. They say back in the 30s or something. And if you've ever seen the picture, if you haven't been to Tirupati, the only picture of the deity is this black and white picture, I believe, and his tilak. You see, my tilak is kind of thin, but his tilak is very wide, and it actually covers his eyes. So the priest explained to me that the reason the eyes of this Krishna deity are veiled by the tilak is that if his eyes were visible, his eyes are so beautiful that no one would leave from in front of the deity. No matter how hard they would be pushed, they would hold on to the guardrails and want to just drown themselves in the beauty of his eyes. So that's one of the reasons they say that his eyes are covered by tilak, so that people won't, dig in there. Then another reason it said is because of our sinful activities or whatever, he would burn the planet to ashes. His eyes are so powerful, so full of Shakti and potency. In any case, the swan-like devotees, this beautiful oasis-like temples near every major metropolitan and many rural areas in India. So if you're traveling there, take advantage. See yourself going to India at any time, Rob? You just got my best advice in advance. You should go to Govardhan Eco Village. It's just outside of Bombay. It's United Nations not too long ago awarded it as one of the topmost eco villages, self-sustainable green villages in the whole world. You would like that, Rob. Anyway, our verse today, we're moving to the verse which is the counterpart of the verse that we spent 6 sessions on previously. The first verse is Nayad Vichastita Paramhariya Jagat Pavitampa Tadvayasham Tirtam Vishanti Nanyata Nyantarham Shah Narmantya Shikshayaham. The verse that we spent 6 sections on was the crow verse. It said, the literatures which are full of mundane topics of no permanent import, which are just meant to sensationalize and generate income and grab you because of their outrageousness, those are like places of pilgrimage for crows. They're refuse. They're discarded subject matter. It's like toilet paper. You use it, you discard it. You don't go back again and again and again and again. On the other hand, Tak Bhagvi Sargo Janatagavi Pravo Yajman Pratishokavari, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental eternal glories of the name, fame, form, and pastimes of the unlimited Lord, is a different creation, not to be discarded, of lasting perennial value. You go back to it again and again and again. You get more and more nectar, more and more deep realizations and pleasure every time you revisit the literature. Why? Because it's full of transcendental words directed towards bringing about a revolution in the lives of the world's misdirected civilization. Revolution. I can tell you that before I met devotees, 50 years ago next month, in a few days it'll be, well, I guess it was this month. Actually, it was February. February is 19, it's more than 50 years now, 52 years since I first met devotees. I was a typical teenager. I wasn't involved in drugs, or I didn't have any bad habits particularly. But my life wasn't purposeful, it wasn't meaningful, there wasn't any zest, there wasn't any vim or vigor, there wasn't a vision for the future. It was just kind of allowing circumstances to shift me here and there, up, down, forward, back, completely at the mercy of my surroundings. But when I met devotees 52 years ago, I suppose it was, that created a revolution in my life. Gradually, not all at once, didn't happen suddenly, but over the course of attending the kirtans and the talks and eating the prasadam, I became purified and directed and focused enough during that period of time that something began to arise from the inside. There began to be eternal stirrings, immortal longings to know who I was and who others were and how we interrelate with each other and what's our position vis-a-vis our Creator, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You might almost go so far as to say, or I might almost go so far as to say, I was born. The day of my birth was the day I met devotees. And that's confirmed in Scripture. Yata kanchanatam yati kamsam rashambira tata diksha bidhanita dvijadbam jayate minam. You know, it's hard for me to tell who's with me because Facebook now has a totally different look. The live section actually has no number of people there. The comments are to the side, and I cannot see the comments without crowding out the main Zoom screen. Probably within a few days I'll get to deal with this. Malini Preeti says, I am yet to go to Tirupati. You're in Malaysia. It's just a little jump over the pond, right? So you should definitely go. You could almost swim, right, from Malaysia to Rameshwaram and go to Tirupati. Highly recommend it. Tirupati is my favorite place in the world. It's clean, unlike most of India. It's all vegetarian. There's no meat, fish, or eggs served anywhere in the town. The devotees are just so sweet. Jaya Sri Radha says, Tirupati Balaji Ki Jai. Rupa Manjari says, Dhanyavats. Good morning, Govinda Dev. I have a suggestion. I don't know how much time you have to spend with us, but should Lakshmi not jump on, you're welcome at about 8:15 or so to do kirtan. You know how to get onto our site because of our satsangs on Wednesday mornings. So let me know if you can come on and do some kirtan. I know that in your legal profession, you may not be able to linger the whole time with us, but should you still be aboard at 8:15, would love for you to do kirtan. Bhakti Gary, Hare Krishna, and Gary offers his obeisances to all the other devotees here. Yes, Malini Priti says, haha, not very far, but Vrindavan is her favorite place where she feels most at home. Great. Well, thank you very much for those of you who joined us. Returning now to the subject matter, Prabhupada didn't have a lot of resources, and he, in preparation to going to America during the last years he spent in India, he would live at Radha Damodar Temple in Vrindavan. Then he had an arrangement with a publisher in Delhi to print the books on consignment because he didn't have the money to pay for them. And then as he would sell the books, he would gradually pay the fee. So we experience this a lot too. We try to do everything on a budget in Spanish Fort. My Bobby interviews a number of different subcontractors, and then she takes the one with the lowest bid. The problem is that because they're not making as much money on us as they are on other people, other clients, we go in the back burner. And so it often takes 2 or 3 or 4 times longer for our jobs to get done than the better paying clients. So Prabhupada's, the printer printed the Srimad Bhagavatam, and yet it wasn't it wasn't a top 10 bestseller. It wasn't paid in advance. And so the printing was not glossy. The binding was not of the standard we're used to in America. The grammar was nothing wrong with the grammar. I would never say there was anything wrong with the grammar, but it's English. Prabhupada went to English schools. So some of the terms and expressions are not what we're used to in America. Prabhupada, when he came to America, had one trunk full of the Srimad Bhagavatam first 3 cantos. And I should have brought some samples. I've got some samples, not the original ones, but actually a BBT reprinted exact likenesses of them. But from a professional printer's point of view, these didn't measure up, in terms of the presentation, the quality of the paper, the quality of the binding, the quality of the jacket, the quality of the images and everything. And yet this verse says, even if there are discrepancies in the presentation of the literature, even if they're imperfectly composed, and these were not at all imperfectly composed, but maybe the covering, the jacket, the delivery system, the bindings weren't all that they would have been if they were prepaid and were going to be bestsellers. So it says such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Prabhupada gives the example that if some people for whom English is not a first language are banging on your door, indicating that your house is on fire or the next door house is on fire, it's not essential to understand the language. By the urgency, by their facial expressions, and by their hand gestures, you can understand there's something going on that needs your immediate attention. You need to pick up the phone and call 911. So when we're living in a godless civilization in the middle of the Kali Yuga age, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, this literature is of paramount importance. It's essential that the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam be broadcast, be disseminated throughout the world. Krishna swadhamapagate dharmagyanam karo nashta dvishamasha paranako dunodidaham. A question was asked, I believe by Maharaj Parikshit to Sukadeva Goswami, now Krishna Swadhamapagate. Now Dwarpa Yuga, the previous ages, is coming to an end with the death of Maharaj Parikshit. Krishna had left the planet sometime previously. Shraddam, he'd gone back, have quit off his pastimes. He had been on the planet for about 125 years. During the 90th year of his pastimes, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita. The great Kurukshetra war took place. Then he stayed around for about another 30 years or so while the Pandavas ruled from Indraprastha. He enjoyed intimate relationships with the Pandavas, and they traveled reciprocally back and forth between Dwarka and Hastinapur. But finally the Lord left the planet, quit his pastimes, wound them up, and went back to home, back to Godhead. Shortly thereafter, his devotees, the Pandavas, retired from monarchical duties, migrated up to the Himalayas, never to be seen or heard from again. And so the question is asked by Maharaj Parikshit, who himself is the grandson of Arjuna and has only a few days to live, and anticipates that once he's not anymore the protector of the earth and the protector of moral standards, Kali Yuga will come rushing in. In fact, Kali Yuga should have come in a long time ago, but it was the power of Maharaj Parikshit, the power of his righteousness and morality, which delayed the appearance of Kali, who is the personification of this current age. And so Maharaj Parikshit anticipates that when he dies from the bite of the snake-berg in just a few days' time, there'll be nothing standing anymore between Kali and Kali's age. And so it could be mayhem, it could be havoc, it could be anarchy, it could be chaos. Now Maharaj Parikshit asked Sukadeva Goswami, Krishna Swadhamapagate, and now that Krishna's gone back to his own abode, and I, the last really powerful representative of Krishna and the Pandavas, will meet with my demise in a few days. Krishna will take with him knowledge and renunciation. He'll take with him, just like when the sun sinks below the horizon, the western horizon at night, it takes light and heat away with it. So similarly, when Krishna left the planet, knowledge and religion basically vacated along with him. So what will be the hope from where people in this coming age of Kali will get light? And the answer is through the Bhagavat Purana. Purana to Dunodita, the Bhagavat Purana, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And there's a set in your house right now, Natasha. That set is the great hope. That is the sun. That is the light. That is what will roll back the darkness. That's as Krishna stood between chaos and the age, as Maharaj Parikshit stood between chaos and the age in the absence of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, in the absence of Maharaj Parikshit, who was the great representative of the Pandava dynasty. Now the Srimad Bhagavatam, that set of books that you have in your house, Natasha, is what stands between us and all the anomalies of the age. Kale doshe nidhi rajan asti ekad kirtanyadeva krishnasya mukta sangha paramparya. The age in which we're living is an ocean of faults, hypocrisy, the tyranny of the politicians, the lack of insight and vision and real spiritual leadership, the decline in the standards of morality, the divisiveness, the rancor, the bitterness, the fighting and quibbling and quarreling, the hypocrisy. And yet, Kirtanya Deva Krishnasya, if we simply hear and chant Krishna's holy name, fame, form, and paraphernalia, and the Bhagavatam is all about his devotees and paraphernalia, then we will mukta sangha paramvajat. We will achieve liberation from all the negative things of the Kali Yuga. In fact, although Kali Yuga is from many points of view the most degraded, fallen age, many elevated demigods and saints, they aspire to take birth in the Kali Yuga. It says, Kala subha dhyantya gyanagya sarabhavinam yatra sankirtanarivya sarva savatra vidapadyate. Although there are so many negative things about this current season of the cosmos, there's one great quality. That's simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You can get relief You can get mitigation of all the sufferings of this age just by chanting Hare Krishna and reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. So even demigods line up and they pray to take birth in this Kali Yuga age. Prabhupada further explains this verse by saying that great personalities, sometimes the swan-like men are called Paramahamsas. Hamsa means swan. Parama means great, swan-like men. Now the swan can stick its beak into a mixture of water and milk and just extract the milk, leaving behind the water. Isn't that interesting? It can also delve its beak into the stem of a lotus flower. Usually stems of plants don't have much value. I know that when on the buffet we have broccoli with long stems, first thing I do is cut the stem off because it's chewy and gristly. I don't like it. I like the tops of the broccoli, the tops of the cauliflower. And when I cook, I just cook the tops. But some people value the nutrition of the stems and they leave the long stems. You know what I'm talking about? I don't like that at all. They're just like, sometimes they're just so chewy and unpalatable. So usually the stems are not of great, they're not particularly relishable. However, within the stems there is juice, nectar, just like within our bones. There's a very rich and fine substance called marrow. When people get very down, when their immune systems and everything are repressed to the point of a life or death issue, you've heard about bone marrow transplants. Doctors can extract the marrow from the bones of a healthy living being and some or other inject that into the person who's hovering between life and death. That marrow is such a rich substance and so powerful that it can bring someone literally back from the edge of death. But within the stems of plants and vegetables, there is nectar, but getting to them is a problem because they're encased in bristly, sinewy stuff. But the swan doesn't have to go through the stem. The swan goes into, sorry for coming in and out. I think if I lean forward, I'll be more consistently visible to you. The swan goes into the middle of the stem, dives down, and it extracts the nectar from the stem of the lotus flower. So Prabhupada says, great swan-like men, they know how to get the highest from the lowest. They know how to get the marrow from the bones, the nectar from the stem, the milk from the water. And there's three other examples that Prabhupada gives. You can get gold from a filthy place. Even though the gold is lying in a filthy place, it may be covered with mud and dirt and all kinds of bad things. That does not negate the value of the gold. The surroundings of the gold do not affect the value of the gold. And so gold can and should be accepted even when it's lying in a filthy place. Another example is that if you see a woman who's chaste and proficient and honest and comely, it doesn't really, don't worry if she doesn't come from a high-class family or a good so-called birth or background. You recognize that some or other, just like sometimes you might be walking in the Wasatch Mountains. We're high desert here, so you can go through acres and acres along the trail of scrubby brush, yellow, dried, not see greenery, not see any colorful flowers for quite some time. And then right in the middle of a field, a brown monochromatic field, you see this beautiful flower, like right in the middle of nowhere. So similarly, you can, if you find a qualified woman, even if she doesn't come from, an aristocratic, affluent family, you should accept her. You should accept her. So just as you can take gold from a filthy place, you can take as a wife a lifetime companion, a woman who's not necessarily highborn. The other example is given that you can get, if you can get nectar from poison. How can you get nectar from poison? Well, sometimes certain types of toxins can actually act as medicines. A crude example, when Bhima was a youngster, Duryodhana hated Bhima. Eventually, they were to duel it out after the Kurukshetra war, mano a mano, and Bhima was to kill Duryodhana. But when they were children, Duryodhana tried everything he could to kill Bhima, that member of the 5 Pandava brothers who had the strength of 10,000 elephants, and he was very impulsive, very rash, and very outspoken, very tactless. And he just managed to rub Duryodhana the wrong way every time he opened his mouth. And because of his prodigious strength, Bhima would sometimes, I hate to say it because he's a pure devotee, bully his cousin brothers, the Kauravas. Sometimes they would all be climbing trees, and Bhima would get at the bottom and shake the tree, so all the boys would fall out, spraining their ankles and wrists, maybe even break an arm or two. Duryodhana hated Bhima. But one day, Duryodhana personally baked this cake for Bhima, even let Bhima see him, going to a great deal of trouble with the measuring cups, getting the highest quality flour, cane sugar, not white sugar, cane sugar, raw sugar. Maybe he used stevia, agave, I don't know. Anyway, he did whatever he could to entice, make Bhima anticipate this cake. It might have been a birthday offering or something. And one time when they were all out by the banks of the river, Yamuna River, they sat down for a picnic, and Bhima began to cut the cake up into pieces to share it with all the cousin brothers. And Duryodhana said, no, I cooked another cake for all of us. This is for you. You must eat the whole cake. And Bhima did that. Bhima wasn't the kind of person who would just eat a slice daintily. He would eat the whole thing. So he wolfed down the cake, and inside the cake, Duryodhana had put enough poison to kill 10,000 elephants. Bhima fell asleep. He fell into a stupor. He was losing his life. He was passing from life to death, from consciousness to unconsciousness. And then, to further ensure that he would die, Duryodhana and his brothers threw him into the river. So they figured he not only, Lakshmi's on board here. Okay, Govinda Dev, we're joined by Lakshmi Prajuji. So continuing on this story, thanks for coming in, Lakshmi. We're talking about the poisoning of Bhima. So not only did Duryodhana feed him a cake that had enough poison in it to kill 10,000 elephants, but then he threw him in the Ganges River, or the Yamuna River. So he's figuring he'll either die by poison or he'll die by drowning. And what happened was there were many snakes, Nagas, who lived in that river, and they resented this body floating down, big, strong, muscular body floating down into their area of sovereignty. And they, like guard dogs or guard snakes, went out and they just bit him thousands and thousands of times. What was interesting was the external poison, the poison which was injected through the venomous fangs of the snakes, counteracted the poison of the snakes. And so Bhima was awakened, he broke his bonds, and he came back to shore. In fact, he'd been given a benediction by the king of snakes, with whom they had a short conversation, that his strength would now increase to the level of 10,000 elephants. So Prabhupada gives these 3 examples, that one should accept the transcendental glories of the Lord as described by his pure devotees, even if the conveyance, the means, the packaging is not up to the standard of your best-selling books and your classic novels. When Prabhupada came to the United States of America with a trunk of books which were not published up to the highest level of professionalism, nevertheless, he had a trunk full of weapons of mass instruction. And those books, as humble as they might have appeared, have sparked what has been called all over the world as the Hare Krishna explosion. Those books have brought back righteousness, truth, knowledge, religiosity. And from every one of the Hare Krishna temples worldwide, there are bases where sallying forth from those bases, from those camps, go devotees almost each and every day to distribute Srimad Bhagavatams. And I'm so happy that last night, our newest Patreon member, Natasha and Larry, came to the Sunday feast for the second time, and I was able to load up into the back of their Hyundai a full, unopened, strapped, shrink-wrapped set of the Srimad Bhagavatams. In fact, Lakshmi, there's a group called, I forget what it was, I saw it, and they are committed to distributing, I think, 25,000 sets of Bhagavatams in the next period of time. Have you heard of that group? Bhadrasena, something like that. I'll try and find out more about it. But what can you say about the glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lakshmi?
The glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam are unlimited. They are filled with transcendental nectar about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not so much of Srimati Radharani. She's there in secret because Radha is so powerful to meditate on Srimati Radharani that Sukadeva Goswami would go into ecstasy, so he had to present her in secret. So we get from the first canto to the ninth canto all of the glories, why we are going to listen to these pastimes of this blue cowherd boy. What are his powers, his potencies, his instructions that are coming to us from him and from his pure devotees? And then in the 10th canto, we get that nectarian mango dripping with this unbelievable sweetness that we can digest, we can consume and digest. And the result of that, just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, that all misgivings that are within our heart. What are misgivings? Misgivings, doubts, attachments, all of these, they dissipate like the sun rising and dissipating the fog.
And just like you can take the Bhagavatam because of its intrinsic value, even though the original printing wasn't up to the highest standard, you can also take the preachers, the members of the iskcon, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, as bona fide representatives, deliverers of the weapons of mass instruction. Even though they're born in Western families, they were born in families of meat eaters, and their parents drank. They may have even drank before they became devotees. None of us had a history of which we're particularly proud. We didn't take birth in the Western countries in Kali Yuga necessarily because of a huge backlog of pious activities. But, you take what you can get. We're here for the age. We're anointed. We're empowered. We're linked up to the disciplic succession. The example is given in the war field when there's bombs bursting all around and bullets flying. The crying need are for doctors. You don't ask when you're bleeding, when your intestines are hanging out. You don't ask the medic or the doctor that comes to save your life where you come from, what's your background, who are your parents, what medical school did you go to. You don't even care if they went to medical school. I mean, you've been to India a lot, Lakshmi. There are many practitioners in India that haven't been to medical school. But they've cured people. They've cured people for decades and decades. Because medicine is actually experience. You experience firsthand, one-on-one. And after a while, you get a certain intuition. Prabhupada told that one time he was in a pharmacy/doctor's office. Obviously, the man didn't have any credentials or formal training. But he'd been a doctor in that neighborhood, I presume, in Allahabad for many, many years. And a man who was known to both of them distantly as a casual acquaintance walked past the front of this open air shop and just coughed. That doctor said that he will die within 24 hours. Just hearing the cough. So vast was his experience and so insightful was his intuition from having practiced medicine. So in the same way, we're enjoined, don't fault find. Don't look for faults and discrepancies. You'll probably find them. There's plenty of faults if you're looking for them in Kali Yuga. But take the nectar. If you have the gold, you don't say, oh, this gold is stinky. there's dirt on this gold. This gold is muddy. No, you say, it's gold. I don't care if it's dirty or stinky. If you find a qualified wife, you don't say, well, she doesn't come from the best family. Hey, she's honest, she's chaste, she's beautiful. You don't care about any of that. So it is said by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, folks, the highest possible authority, Yare Deke Tare Kaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Aya Tara He Hara E Desh. Doesn't matter the background, doesn't matter the birth, the aristocracy, the ethnicity, the race, doesn't matter the gender. If you are fortunate enough to find the Bhagavatam, the sound vibration Supreme Personality of Godhead, the book, as well as a representative, a bona fide representative of the line of disciplic succession, then take it. The need of the hour is desperate. It's an emergency, warlike situation. If we don't get the trias, if we don't get the medical attention, if we don't get the injection of the Srimad Bhagavatam through the authorized representatives who may not be born in Brahmin families, they may not know all the scriptures, they may not even know any verses at all, but they carry the message of the Bhagavatam as it has been delivered to them from their spiritual master. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, don't miss this chance. It'll literally bring you back from the cusp of rebirth and hellish conditions of life, perhaps even falling down to the lower species. Take it as your lifeline. Anybody who is following the orders of their spiritual master and delivering the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam is themselves a spiritual master, is capable of deliberating everyone in the land. And you only cheat yourself if you approach such a person with a critical fault-finding mentality. It's also said, Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi Sudukene, say Krishna Tattva Deti, say Guru Haya. Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Sud. Doesn't matter if one's a very learned person. Doesn't matter if one is a renunciate. Doesn't matter if one is a low-class Sudra. Yea, Krishna Tattva Beti, if they know the science of Krishna and can pass it on to you, say Guru Haya. They are to be accepted as a guru. Response, sir.
It's just like, even you use the analogy of whether it's a doctor or not, just like EMT, right? The emergency medical team comes and you say,
They're not doctors. Yeah, they're not
doctors. No, but what
I'll just wait with my intestines hanging out until a doctor comes. Thank you very much. Who says that? Or you could do, I'll wait with my intestines hanging out until a doctor comes. Said no one ever.
What is your training? What is your background? Look, I'm EMT here. I'm trained. I can help you for now. And minimally, I can get you to someone who is trained cardiologist or whatever. That happened to me once, I tell you, because I have this tendency to get, if I don't eat carefully, acid reflux. And acid reflux has symptoms like heart attack. So I had it one evening and my wife said, oh, you got to call, she's a doctor. She said, no, you got to call an ambulance and get to the hospital. And so I came and the EMT guys came and they started looking at me. And I didn't say, get out of here. You know, my wife's a doctor, or take me to a cardiologist. I just said, okay, you know, give me some help here. And then they drove me to the hospital and the cardiologist saw me and he said, you know, basically there wasn't a heart attack, but that's,
Thank God. Thank God. We can't do without your kirtans. Your insightful comments.
Yeah, but what idiot would send them away? What idiot would say, you're not a doctor, get out of here? You'd be grateful that
and even those that are born in Brahmin families, they're says Sarva Bhaksha Dvija Dvija Vidya Vita Dehandriya Chaka Vedgana. The Brahmins, the ones who were born in Brahmin families, were cursed a long time ago by the followers of Shiva that they would take birth in the Kali Yuga and then do their rituals and sacrifices only for the purpose of feeding their bellies. So not only are the Brahmins, not qualified, but they're capable of grossly misleading you in this present age of Kali. So just learn to recognize by its qualities, learn to recognize a tree by its fruits, and accept anybody who's conversant in the science of Krishna. You know,
It's like the Yajnik Brahmins, right?
which ones?
The Yajnik Brahmins, the Yajnik Brahmins. Krishna came, the cowherd boys came to them
Yeah, yeah.
for their offerings to give directly to Krishna. And they said, no, get out of here. We have to perform our rituals and etc. So what was the value when you're doing yajna for whom? For Bhoktaram Jagna Tapasam, for that supreme receiver of yajnas. But when he actually comes, he sends one and you say, get out of here. So what is the value of that?
Even in traditional India, in antique India, Brahmins were never Brahmins by birth alone. Of course, there was a greater likelihood that the son of a Brahmin would have the inclination and tendency, but they would have to show that inclination and they would have to get the proper training. And even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna never says that a Brahmin is a Brahmin by birth. A Brahmin is a Brahmin by qualifications, just like a good woman is a good woman by qualifications. They're not good by birth. They may have been born in a good family, but they got off on the wrong track. They may have been born in not so socially high placed family, but they may have good qualities. So one should be recognized and accepted or rejected by the qualities or the absence of the qualities. In Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, and this is the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, so we know that whatever Krishna put in the last chapter of his book is one of his more important points. So he says, Samo, Damo, Tapas, Socham, Santir, Arjavam, Eva Cha, Brahma, Jnanam, Vijnanam, Brahma, Karma, Shabhavadam. How do we recognize a Brahmin? Sense control, mind control, simplicity, knowledge, theoretical knowledge, applied knowledge. Who exhibits these qualities is accepted as a Brahmana. And he said, Yan namine shravanir kirtanad yad pravanad yajmarid sadyopi sadya kalpataya kuta panaste bhagavan darshanam. The Siddhas said to Lord Shiva, isn't it amazing that these boys and girls, even though they are born in the families of dog eaters, says just by having chanted the holy name of Krishna one time and taken prasadam, they are qualified to perform Vedic sacrifices. Such is the power of prasadam and chanting the holy names, that if you take prasadam and chant the holy names and never again revert to sinful activities, you become immediately, after chanting even one time and taking prasadam one time, you become immediately qualified not only to perform sacrifices, but to act as a guru and deliver people from birth, death, disease, and old age. Whoo! I think that's a pretty heady point on which to end. Lakshmi, wrap it up
Yes.
for me. Rob, wrap it up. And one thing that's good about this new format, Facebook is showing me a whole new format, and it's weird, but one thing that's good is I'm seeing all the comments. Before I could only see the top 4, but now I'm seeing all the comments. So Rob, you think about what you're going to say. I called on you earlier, but you must have stepped out or something. So maybe you're back now. But Anjali's on board. When I gave my Saturday night talk from Spanish Forks, she single-handedly made 44 comments. Jai Anjali. That's like a personal record. And by the time I'd responded, we had a total of 88 comments for Saturday night's talk. So she calls me the postman. John Malik says, Hare Krishna. Britta, her comments are always so insightful. We love to hear from Britta. Okay, I'm scrolling down here. And, oh no, what's going on? At one time, I could see all the oh yeah, Ram Kishore, thank you. Sundari Priya. Ram Kishore says, I see and hear you. Britta says, reading you loud and clear. Natasha, Hare Krishna. Malini Preeti. She says, I'm blissful. I take a page from Malini Preeta's book. What a smiling devotee. Subhadra, Hare Krishna. Jayashree Radhe jumped in a little later. She says, Tirupati Balaji Ki Jai. Rupa Manjari. Malini Preeti says she's been to Vrindavan. She hasn't been to Tirupati. George Pratt. Good morning, George. He has to nip out for his legal work. Bhakti Gary. Sundari Priya. She gave us a link to Govardhan Eco Village. If you ever go to India, Rob, I know this is the first place you're going to want to go. And there's videos about it on YouTube, I would recommend also. Ram Kishore. Okay, we're getting repetition. Raleigh, Hare Krishna, Raleigh. Yeah, many of the same people are coming back. And Natasha says, I can't wait to start reading the Srimad Bhagavatams. Haribo. Any questions you have, Natasha, we're here. We love to answer questions. Kusham Demon says, Jai Ho. George again. Okay, Raquel, she has renamed Motivational Monday to Marvelous Monday. Thank you. Jaya Shri Radhe would like to invite the devotees to join their Srimad Bhagavatam page. So check out that comment and that link there also. Jean. Okay. All right. A lot of comments. I will respond. I have to go into the kitchen Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays after this. And so it may not be till later on in the day. So Rob and Lakshmi, can you guys give a wrap-up statement here before Lakshmi's kirtan? Rob first.
Absolutely, Babaji. Thank you. Yeah, what I'm taking from this is that Krishna will reach you however you're prepared to be reached, and as long as you're accepting and open to that, instead of trying to question the authority or the legitimacy of spiritual leaders, and as long as you're discerning as well, then you will receive the message that he wants you to receive. And like you said, you can't run around questioning everyone's background when you're desperate for spiritual guidance. So I think using discernment is important, but we can't question absolutely everything and look for that perfect spiritual guide, because in this age of Kali Yuga, none of us are perfect. We all have our material entanglements, but that doesn't mean that wisdom can't be brought to you through any means Krishna finds necessary.
And definitions of perfection are we just concoct them, don't we? What, we say this is perfection. That's just a concoction on our part. Actually, perfection is described in the Bhagavad Gita as complete, unalloyed devotion to Krishna and Krishna's service. Such a person may have character flaws. They may get angry once in a while. Of course, we don't condone that. But Bhima got angry a lot, That's why Duryodhana hated him so much. Maybe Duryodhana had, on a certain level, he had every right to hate Bhima. After all, he knocked all of his brothers out of the tree and broke their arms and all. But the standard of perfection is, are they devoted to Krishna? And so when you say somebody has this or that fault, they're not perfect, that's just your concoction. If they are unwaveringly fixed, if they're holding on to the lotus feet of Krishna, then they are Krishna's definition of perfect. Lakshmi.
Yeah, that always makes me, I was going to say something else, but just what you just said, that always makes me think of that Apichet Surarachara verse. Krishna gave that for us to understand the glories of someone fully engaged in devotional service. That's for our benefit, that verse. And then it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Chaitanya Nityanande Nahi Eshaba Vichara Namaloite Prema Denabahi Ashrudara. One will be cleansed of all offenses very quickly just by chanting the holy names of Chaitanya and Nityananda with a little faith. Then as soon as one chants the Hare Krishna mantra, he will attain prema and tears will flow from his eyes. So I think Enough said, right?
Except for the Maha Mantra.
Oh.
Once again, thanks everyone for joining us on Motivational / Marvelous Monday. We're going to end as we always do with a wonderful kirtan by Lakshmi, and we'll be back tomorrow to get more nectar out of this verse, which we call the verse describing the swan-like men and the swan-like literatures that we relish.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Woo! That was a high energy kirtan, Lakshmi. That went on longer than normal, and it was higher energy than normal. Yeah, you're fired up today. I'm fired up too. I'm gonna fired up to go into the kitchen and set up the buffet, which is why I won't be able to answer your comments right away. But thank you all for no less than 43 comments. I will get to them later on in the day. I look forward to responding and answering any questions that you might have. Well, thank you very much. This has been Motivational Monday with Lakshmi, Rob, Caru, and each and every one of you out there on Facebook. Facebook gave me a different look today. It was kind of strange and a little disorienting. I could the picture, the image, the video was not live. It was frozen. That was the bad news. But the good news is that for some reason in this new format, I'm able to see all of your comments, whereas before I could only see the top 4. So everything in life is a combination, right? Good and bad. Just let go. Go with God. Be flexible. We'll take it. We'll take it. I look forward to being able to share all of your comments in the future, even if our picture is frozen in static. All right, we will take your leave now by chanting and encouraging you to join us in chanting the great mantra for deliverance, and look forward to rejoining you tomorrow at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time for Transcendental Tuesday. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare